Hello there. Every day, well, as many days as possible during Black History Month, I make a new profile of a badass black woman from history. So many of the accomplishments of black women in U.S. history has been willfully, intentionally hidden or even destroyed. And I think it's important to reclaim that history. So let's talk today about Maritcha Lyons. She was born on Center Street in New York City. She was the third of five children from of Albro Lyons and his wife Mary Joseph Lyons. Her father Albro was graduated from the first African free school in Manhattan, New York. He and his wife were also fierce civil rights activists, and their home in New York City was an important stop on the Underground Railroad. They were also very determined to get first class educations for all of their children. And Maritcha later wrote of herself that she had a love of study for study's sake. She went to Manhattan's College School number 3. Now, in 1863, this is before the Civil War, but they had a bunch of riots, several days of riots in New York City that were known as the draft riots. For 4 days, white mobs assaulted, tortured, beat, killed any black New Yorkers that they found in the street, men, women, and children. They damaged and sometimes burned their homes, their businesses, their churches. At least 120 people were killed, although scholars say that was probably much higher than that. More than 2,000 were injured, many of them seriously, and at least 25% of black New Yorkers were displaced. They lost their homes. They afterwards, a committee was formed, and a list of colored sufferers from the late mob was published. It contained more than 200 names and along with estimates of their property damages. Now, Albro Lyons was on that list. He was a pretty wealthy black merchant for his race at that time. He ran a ship outfitting business and a boarding house for black sailors. Part of the mob looted and damaged his home. He asked for reparations. He did get a small amount of reparations, but it was attacked more than once during the draft riots. Maritcha was a teenager at that time. They did not get enough money in reparations to repair their home completely, and so they fled to Salem, Massachusetts. They eventually returned to Brooklyn, but while they were in Massachusetts, her parents actually sent her to Providence, Rhode Island, where it was safer. They actually the kids were on B Street, where Cotting Court is now. And in 1865, Maritcha was not allowed to attend the high school in Providence because she was black and the schools were segregated at that point. The state had no high school for black children available. But Albro, her father, sued the state of Rhode Island, part of a larger campaign to desegregate the schools there. And as a 16-year-old, Maritcha testified before the state legislature. She pled for the opening of the door of opportunity. The schools were desegregated in 1866, and Maritcha became the first black student to graduate from Providence High School. As an adult, she returned to New York. She built her career as a teacher. She was a fierce advocate and an activist for both racial justice and for women's suffrage. She became an elementary school teacher at Colored School number 1. It's now PS 67. It was the first African free school in the Fort Greene neighborhood of Brooklyn. It was also Brooklyn's first school for African Americans, opened at what is now the current site of Walt Whitman Houses, one of the largest housing projects in NYC. She later became the assistant principal of PS 83, only the second black woman to serve as assistant principal in the whole school system, and then she became principal. Maritcha believed that elementary education was the key to advance the next generation of black Americans. It was the key not only to economic success, but family stability, to political success, not only for black kids, but students of all races. Most kids at that time got only an elementary education in the 19th century. She became really well known as a public speaker, a lecturer, a writer. She once won a debate against Ida B. Wells. And in fact, Wells later credited Lyons with teaching her how to become a better public speaker. In 1892, she and a friend of hers, an activist named Victoria Earle Matthews, organized a testimonial dinner in Lyric Hall. This was because at the time, Ida B. Wells couldn't get her anti-lynching book published. And so Maritcha and Victoria Matthews organized this dinner to raise the funds to publish her book. Coming out of that, not only did they publish it, that was Southern Horrors, Lynch Law in all its phases, but they formed the Women's Loyal Union of New York and Brooklyn. It was a black women's club that fought for racial justice. She also fought for women's rights throughout her life. She was a member of the Colored Women's Equal Suffrage League of Brooklyn. And this is a picture of a banquet that I found in the New York Public Library system. They say that somewhere in there is Maritcha Lyons. This was a banquet that was held at Anderson's Assembly Rooms in New York City. It was honoring Charles D.B. King. He was, at that point, Secretary of State of Liberia. He was also president-elect of Liberia. Lyons was a co-founder of the White Rose Mission in Manhattan's San Juan Hill District. It helped provide support to migrants, not only Black American migrants who are coming from the South, but also immigrants from the West Indies. She taught in the Brooklyn schools for nearly half a century. She wrote a memoir that was called Memories of Yesterdays, all of which I saw and part of which I was. That memoir includes photographs of herself and her family. You could find them all if you're interested in those photographs, her memoir, at the Schoenberg Center for Research in Black Culture. It's at the New York Public Library. Her memoir was never published. However, there was a book written about Lyons based on her memoir. It's called Maritcha, a 19th Century Girl. In addition to her memoir, though, Lyons actually did a lot of writing. In fact, she provided 8 biographical sketches of other amazing Black women, like in a book that was called Homespun Heroes and Other Women of Distinction. She resided in Brooklyn with her brother and his family until she died in January of 1929. If you're interested in Maritcha Lyons, you can actually visit Maritcha Lyons Park. It's in Brooklyn. It's actually in Bridge Plaza at the corner of J Street and Prospect. Maritcha Lyons, yet another badass Black woman from history. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and as always, please be kind.